Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Berachos Daf Yud Aleph in the Oz V'Hadar print. I want to talk about three opinions of the Rashbi that are probably some of his most famous ones, and just some very, very beautiful ideas that come out. The first one is that the Yerushalmi on Daf Yud in the Oz V'Hadar print already started this discussion, and it's continuing on to Yud Aleph, as to whether a person stops and interrupts for Shemona Esrei if he's learning. Somebody who's Torah so Naso, he's learning all day, does he stop? So we basically paskin, of course, that a person stops for Shema and for Shemona Esrei, etc. But in the Gemara, so it quotes Rashbi's opinion. Now, in the Bavli, it says clearly that the Rashbi did not stop for Tefillah for Shemona Esrei, but it implies, and most people bring down, that he of course stopped for Shema to be Mekabel Malch Shemayim. In the Bavli on Daf Yud and also on Daf Yud Aleph, it says explicitly that he did not stop for Shema because he was learning all day and that was his entire thing, so he didn't have to stop. And so therefore Tefillah took second fiddle, so to speak. So there's a lot to be explained, and hopefully we'll explain that a little bit in a moment. But just to point out that differentiation, that in the Bavli it seems pretty clear from the Sigas that he did stop for Shema, but here it says explicitly that he did not. So that's just an interesting thing that needs to be reconciled. And Rav Yochanan says that since we interrupt our Talmud Torah for work, so certainly for Shemona Esrei we need to stop during the day. But it's just amazing to see the level that they were on in their learning, that there was even a Havamina that maybe they shouldn't stop for Shema and Shemona Esrei, and that maybe Tefillah was for people that weren't on that Madrega, which again I'll try to comment in a minute. So the Rashbi's probably most famous line is this idea that he said, Ilu Havina Koim al Torah to Sinai, if I was by the mountain of Sinai, Bishaita this Yavis Torah Yisrael, when the Torah was given, Havina Mitzboi Komi Rahman, I would have asked Hashem that he should create for each person two mouths, one for Torah, that he should lo'ebo, right, so actually to toil in Torah, and one for the Avilei Kol Tzorche, to do all of his needs, which we'll explain in a moment. So this is based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin that says that a person was nivra la'amol peh, which means to discuss Torah. Rosh Pincus Zatzal used to always quote the Zohar, but it says that the purpose of man is to stand in front of Hashem, to serve Hashem, L'Avad Kami Bari, with Torah and Tefillah, which again, it's funny, Rashbi is writing in the Zohar that Torah and Tefillah, so we'll come to that in a moment. So, and also the Gemara, it says, Habalo Holo Sagi, the Gemara at the end of Nida, that a person can't accomplish in Torah or Parnasa without a combination of Tefillah in there. In fact, in the Memches Torah Niknes, the 48 things at the end of ways to acquire Torah at the end of Mesachos Avos, so the Mishnah actually omits Tefillah. And I saw a beautiful pshat in the Sefer by Rabban Salman Shlita, Shabbat Shlema, that he said that there's no point of even putting that as a list. It's not one of the requirements. It's a prerequisite. It goes with all the other ones. The Talmud, the Shmiras Ozen, Richos Vasayim. You can't accomplish anything without the Tefillah part, again, because it's so integral to davening. So here, the Rashbi is kind of ignoring that. So what's going on? So we'll come back to that in a moment. Anyway, so that famous line that I would have asked for two mouths is said actually in the context of, therefore, since the Rashbi holds one mouth is for Torah, that's the most important thing in the world, that it's so holy, that's all it should be used for, even for a person's needs, which includes davening. It's better than davening. So therefore, that's his opinion, that you shouldn't even stop for davening, which again, according to Yerushalmi, is Shemona Esrei and even Shema. So just, it's interesting that it was said in that context. But we know that from the Gemara in Shabbos also that it calls Chai Olam and Chai Shah, that Tefillah is Chai Shah compared to the Chai Olam of davening, which is very interesting. I want to just point out also a very fascinating thing, that if you look in the Sefer Torah, the letter Pei is written, it's a very interesting and confusing letter, especially those that have reading issues, that the letter Pei in Safras is written with a Beis inside. It's actually brought down La Halacha. If you look at the Mishnah Berurah, Siman Lamed Beis, Lamed Gimel, in the Simanim about how to write. So that's how actually a person has to write it, that the Beis has, that the letter Pei has a Beis inside it. This is Merames to this mimer, because the Gemara says Peh Sasam. The Gemara says in Shabbos stuff, Kuf Daled, where it talks about the letters, Bavli, so it says that Pei represents mouth. So this Beis is the reminder of the Rashbi that a person should have had two mouths. And that's why there's a Beis inside the Pei of Peh, which is a remez that a person has to use his mouth b'kedusha. We all know the end of the Gemara, that Rashbi said, look how much Lashon Hara a person speaks with his one mouth, so certainly the world can't stand if a person had two mouths. Agav, like the Chavetz Chaim brings down, Al Pi the Zohar, that literally Lashon Hara literally destroys and kills the world, and it's literal that what goes on there. Ayin Sham Devarim Neflam and Mavhilim from the Rashbi, but that's one Hara about the Rashbi. So the other thing is that the Gemara itself asks this kasha on the Rashbi, which is, doesn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai admit that that a person should learn Torah almanas l'kayim to fulfill, and even Reb Yochanan even says that a person that learns and doesn't fulfill noachlo ilu nepcha shel yasav apanav v'lo yatzal, very famous line that he should have turned his on his face and not even come out and been born, which also is, there's a lot of pshatim. So the Gemara gives a very so meaning how could you not stop and daven Shema and Shema Esrei? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai holds Zeh Shinon, this is Torah study in one form, Zeh Shinon, and this is Torah study, and therefore Ve'en Mevatel Shinon V'nei Shinon, so we don't interrupt the Torah study for Torah study. Now, what in the world is going on? So the Charedim and many other Mefarshim ask that, wait a minute, Shema is Kabbalas Ol Shemayim. So the Charedim tries to reconcile the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. I think that's what he's doing. And he basically says that, no, according to everyone, the Rashbi said the first pasuk, that's no Raisa, and that's how he held, so of course he was Yotze. And he tries to bring a raya that the Gemara says later, also the Bavli brings this down, that Rebbe, when he was in the middle of teaching Torah, he would, and the time for Shema came, he would say the first pasuk. And so that's what's going on. But I think there's something much deeper. I think there's a different answer that might explain a lot. My Rebbe, Rav Yozel Tzemritz, that's all. I heard a shir from him for many years in Yiddish and in Hebrew, and afraid I didn't always understand everything. But one thing I remember he said, this one I got, he said that there was once two Avrechim who were learning, and Ruvain says to his friend Shimon, he says, you won't believe it, I had the craziest dream last night. He says, yeah? He said, you're going to think I'm crazy. He said, go ahead, tell me. He said, I dreamt that Hashem spoke to me. He said, okay, why do you think that's not crazy? He said, what do you mean? Like, isn't that wild? So he said, no, like, you're an Avrech. You get up and you daven and you learn. Your whole day long is thinking about Hashem. So obviously, whatever you dream about, you're going to be dreaming about what you thought about during the day. So his friend is staring at him. He says, I know, that's the point. Who's thinking about Hashem throughout the day? Isn't that a crazy dream? So, sometimes we could do things and we forget the Rebbeinu Shalom behind it. So, yes, according to the Rashbi, of course, if there's a mitzvah of sukkah, like the Yerushalmi says, of course you stop and you do that. But when it comes to Shema, what's the whole purpose of learning? The whole purpose of learning is that you're supposed to be Makabel Ol Shemayim. So you're going to tell me to stop and say Shema, so Makabel Ol Shemayim. What do you think I'm doing? The Rashbi's learning was a Kabbalas Ol Shemayim the entire time. So Mela, for him, why should I stop for Shemon Esrei? Why should I stop for Shema? That is what I'm doing. So Mela, that's the power of Tila, and that's the power of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's learning, and that might explain the entire concept of what's going on over here. That's what Rashbi says. I'm already doing that. So yeah, when it comes to mitzvah Maisias Beguf, of course he put on tefillin. Of course he did all these things. Sorry. The Vilna Gaon wore tefillin all day, and the Ramchal wore tefillin all day. Of course the Rashbi did as well, right? But the point is that the mitzvah of Shinon, of articulating something, that he was doing anyway. I'm connecting with Hashem. That's the greatest thing. So perhaps that's some of the pshatim in understanding Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in our blood. Have a great day.